He walked into the cafeteria clutching his tray, trying to ignore the Snickers already building around him. His sneakers, scuffed, faded, the soles beginning to peel, dragged every eye to the floor. Darius kept his head down, wishing for invisibility. But high school had never been kind to boys like him. Before he even sat down, the laughter started. Yo, look at them busted shoes. Marcus, the self-proclaimed king of the sophomore class, pointed across the room. His fresh white Jordans gleamed under fluorescent lights, and the pack of kids around him erupted in cruel laughter. Did you dumpster dive for those, Darius? Or did Goodwill run a clearance sale? The words sliced through the air sharper than knives. Darius tried to swallow the humiliation burning in his throat. He didn't answer. He never did. But that silence only fueled Marcus's cruelty. Tell you what, bro, Marcus smirked. Shine my shoes with those rags on your feet, and maybe, I'll let you sit at our table. The cafeteria roared. Darius clenched his fists under the table, every muscle in his body tight. But he stayed silent. What they didn't know, what they couldn't even imagine, was a secret he carried. That afternoon, as the final bell rang and students poured into the parking lot, Marcus and his crew lingered by the curb. They weren't done humiliating him. Darius walked past, still quiet, still steady. Where you going, bum? Marcus sneered, stepping in front of him. You walking home, or is a garbage truck picking you up? Laughter again. Darius kept walking, refusing to give them the satisfaction of a reaction. But then it happened. The low, smooth roar of an engine rolled across the lot, powerful enough to silence every voice. Heads turned. A sleek black Lamborghini Urus glided into view, its paint gleaming like liquid night under the sun. The car eased to a stop right in front of Darius. The door lifted, and out stepped a woman who silenced the entire schoolyard. His mother, tall, elegant, with braids cascading down her shoulders, dressed in a sharp tailored suit and heels that clicked like gunshots on the pavement. Her presence commanded respect without a word. She looked at Marcus, then at his shiny Jordans, and her lips curled into the faintest smile. Darius, she said, her voice firm but warm. Get in. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Darius slid into the leather interior as if he had done it 1,000 times before. His mother didn't rush to drive away. Not yet. She turned, her eyes locking on Marcus, whose smug grin had evaporated into something much smaller, much weaker. Young man, she said, her voice calm but caring, a person's worth isn't measured by the shoes they wear, but sometimes mocking the wrong one exposes the holes in your own soul. Marcus shifted, his confidence crumbling under her gaze, while the crowd whispered in shock. The Lamborghini door lowered, sealing Darius inside as the engine purred like a lion ready to pounce. They drove off, leaving Marcus pale, humiliated, and speechless in the middle of the lot. But that was only the beginning, because Marcus wasn't done. His bruised ego would soon turn into dangerous envy. And the next time he came for Darius, the consequences would shake the entire school. Marcus never forgot that day in the parking lot. The sight of Darius slipping into a Lamborghini while the entire school stared burned into his pride like acid. He replayed it over and over. The laughter that had once belonged to him now turned into whispers behind his back. The king had been dethroned, and he couldn't stand it. That night, Marcus swore he'd get revenge. By the next week, rumors started spreading. Someone had posted a picture of Darius's shoes online with a caption, "Money can't buy drip." The post went viral in the school group chat, and everyone knew Marcus was behind it. But Darius didn't react. He never did. That silence only fueled Marcus's rage. Friday arrived, the big basketball game. The bleachers were packed, the air electric. Darius wasn't even a player, but Marcus had a plan. He waited until halftime, when the cheerleaders finished their routine and the announcer called out names of students who had achieved honor roll. Darius's name rang out. Applause erupted, but Marcus was ready. As Darius walked across the gym to shake the principal's hand, Marcus stepped into the aisle and shouted, "Yeah, give it up for Mr. Dirty Shoes. Maybe his mommy can buy him some dignity to match that Lambo." The gym erupted with laughter, some mocking, some uncomfortable. Darius froze for a moment, humiliated again. his face burning as hundreds of eyes pinned him. Marcus grinned. This was his victory. But then it happened. A door opened at the side of the gym, and in walked Darius's mom. Not dressed in her suit this time, but in her weekend clothes, still elegant, still powerful, still commanding attention. But she wasn't alone. Behind her walked 3 men in suits, each with the quiet authority of men who didn't need to prove themselves. The crowd fell silent. The principal hurried down to greet her, his entire demeanor shifting into nervous respect. The mic squealed and then he stammered, "Ladies and gentlemen, we're honored to welcome our newest school board trustee, Mrs. Amara Cole." The gym gasped. Darius's mom. Marcus's face drained of color. She didn't look at the crowd. She looked straight at him. Calm, cold, steady. "Interesting," she said, her voice echoing through the mic as she took the stage. "It seems some students here believe mocking others makes them powerful. But true power comes from lifting people up, not tearing them down." The crowd shifted, whispers spreading like wildfire. Marcus tried to laugh it off, but no one laughed with him. Not this time. Even his friends moved away, not wanting to stand too close. Darius stood on the court, his head high for the first time. Justice had found its stage. But just as it seemed Marcus had been silenced forever, he leaned close to one of his friends and muttered through clenched teeth, "This isn't over. If she thinks she can embarrass me like that, she has no idea who my father is." And in that single moment, the real battle lines were drawn. Because Marcus wasn't just a bully. He was the son of a man with power of his own. A man who would stop at nothing to protect his pride. At first, people brushed it off as another desperate bluff. But the following week, everyone realized he wasn't lying. The principal called Darius into the office, his voice shaky but clipped. "Son, your mother may be on the school board now, but you need to understand certain families have influence." Darius narrowed his eyes. Influence. That word was a shield for corruption, and he knew it. Later that night, Darius overheard his mom on the phone, pacing the living room, her voice tense. "Wesley Grant? Oh, I know exactly who he is. And if he thinks intimidation will make me step down, he's in for a rude awakening." Wesley Grant, Marcus's father, a wealthy businessman who had his name stamped on half the town. The kind of man who smiled for cameras while crushing anyone who got in his way. And now, his pride was wounded because his son's reign as schoolyard king had been shattered. The showdown came faster than expected. The next PTA meeting was packed. Parents, teachers, even students. At the front sat Amara Cole, calm but unflinching. The doors burst open, and in strode Wesley Grant. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a tailored suit with a smirk that told the world he was untouchable. Marcus trailed behind him, chin lifted, his arrogance restored by his father's presence. Wesley didn't waste time. He marched straight to the mic. "This board has no business appointing outsiders who think they can dictate how we run our schools. My son was humiliated publicly, and I demand accountability." He slammed a hand on the table, his voice booming. The crowd murmured, split between fear and curiosity. Amara rose slowly, her presence commanding without raising her voice. "Accountability? Let's talk about that." She tapped a folder in front of her. "Because while your son was mocking mine for wearing old shoes, he forgot something important. Shoes wear out. Character doesn't. And character, Mr. Grant, is something your household seems to be lacking." The room buzzed. Wesley's jaw clenched. "Careful," he growled. "You don't know who you're dealing with." Amara opened the folder, sliding documents across the table. "Oh, I know exactly who I'm dealing with. A man whose construction company cut corners on the new gymnasium. A man whose name is tied to financial discrepancies buried in last year's budget. A man who thought no one was paying attention. But I was." She locked eyes with him. "And so was the state auditor." The crowd gasped. Wesley's face turned pale, his smirk collapsing. Marcus looked around, panicked, as whispers filled the room. His father, exposed. His power, crumbling. Amara leaned forward, her voice steady and sharp as a blade. "You wanted accountability? You've got it." The room erupted in applause, parents standing, teachers nodding, even students cheering. Marcus slumped in his seat, all his swagger gone. Darius stood tall beside his mother, pride swelling in his chest. For the first time, he wasn't just a boy with the dirty shoes. He was a boy who endured, who stayed silent until the truth spoke louder than any insult. As Wesley was let out of the meeting, defeated, Amara placed a hand on her son's shoulder and whispered, "Never let anyone make you feel small, Darius. The ones who mock you today may be exposed tomorrow." The story should have ended there. Justice had been served. But as they left the building that night, Marcus sat in his father's car, his eyes burning with hatred. He wasn't done. His pride had been shattered twice now. And sometimes a wounded ego is more dangerous than unchecked power. And as the taillights disappeared into the night, Darius didn't realize that Marcus's next move would be personal. Hit that like button. Subscribe for more stories that matter. And let's keep the conversation going.